Hello, friends. It's good to be together today. And today we're going to talk about some spiritual exercises that help us ground to deep knowing that God has put in our bodies that have to do with survival, making choices about what are really good for us in a moment. So, as I get ready to teach you these techniques, I want to talk a little bit about why I'm teaching this practice right now. As the prevalence of vaccines spreads and as states and different groups start saying we can do more and more and more, we're being invited to do more and more activities that we used to do all the time without thinking about them, but now maybe causing us a second thought, like, should I do that? There can also be some kind of both internal and external pressures to do things to get back to normal. And so I think this is a really good time to really work on skills to find out what is our deepest knowing about what is safe for us. And again, I'm going to stress this baseline knowing. We need to get some really basic information, and we may choose to find another way to make that situation safe for us, but we want to drop down out of what I'm calling thinky brain, the part of our brain that loves to look at things from many different angles and sometimes can make us quite anxious or depressed even. We want to drop down to the part of our body that God gave all mammals, kind of more of a little more sophisticated feeling place. And I want to drop down even deeper to the part of our brain that God has given all mammals and all reptiles, an ability to make a really clear-cut decision about whether something feels safe or not. So I'm going to teach you two different techniques about getting some clarity about where you personally are baseline about feeling safe. And this is using tools that God has built into all of us. So this is very exciting to use a gift from God. First of all, I want to talk about how we get ready to do these practices. There's threefold. One, these practices are private. You don't want to do them with another person. You want to do it by yourself. So when you've decided you're going to do the practice, you need to find time to be alone in a place that you won't be interrupted. Okay, so it's private, and you need that security of a private place. Secondly, these practices help us to get baseline information. Again, we may go back to thinky brain and come up with something more sophisticated, but we're trying to get down to really a basic bit of information we need from ourselves. And in order to do that, we have to come up with some very simple questions that we're going to ask ourselves. So I'll talk a little bit more at that in length, but the goal here is not to get up into really sophisticated thinky mind. We're trying to go very simple, very basic. In some ways, it reminds me of a training I had many years ago when I was learning to work with children in Sunday school. And somebody said, learn to make toddler choices. You know, do you want to go to the bathroom now? Yes or no? Really simple questions. So we're going to learn how to ask ourselves some simple questions about safety. And then the third thing that we want to keep in mind is that in order to get a really good deep read, we need to get out of thinky mind and get down into our bodies, into a deeper grounded, more visceral, deep knowing. If we're in super thinky mind, if we're ruminating and racing thoughts, telling ourselves lots of stories or looking at different options, maybe on devices, trying to get lots of information, if we're in that scrolling of data and ideas, we want to drop that energy down. We want to come down from buzzing up here. We want to drop down. And the way to drop down is to do things that get us into our bodies. If we're super buzzy, deep breathing probably isn't going to get us there. For me, it's good sometimes to have a physical activity, to go do some dishes. I love to pull weeds. Is a great way for me to shift gears. Go for a little walk. If maybe what's better for you is to just wash your face or your hands with some fragrant soap. Let your body feel temperature and smell things. Enjoy a cup of tea. But find some activity that moves you down from thinking to being in the body. You can even do things like massage your hands, something really simple. Roll the shoulders, drop your shoulders down. And then, of course, there's taking a deep breath. Just slowly breathe in through the nose and then breathe out gently through the mouth. You can soften your shoulders. You might want to wiggle your spine till you feel a little bit more comfortable. But we just get ourselves grounded in our bodies. Okay? So if you're thinking and you aren't grounded, pause the video and get yourself calmed down a little bit more and then come back. And then we'll do some practices. Okay. Everybody back? So I want to focus today specifically on safety. We can use these techniques to ask other questions, but I think right now being able to discern what we feel safe about is really important. Also, about these practices, they give us a read in this very moment. If you ask yourself a question at 10 a.m. in the morning and then you ask yourself at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you might get a different answer, and both are accurate because they're giving you a read of your sense of what's safe in that moment, okay? So I just want to clarify that. We're going to start with the yes-no practice first, going back into this old part of the brain that many animals shares. It's just very binary. Yes or no. For those of us who speak English, it's yes or no. Also, I would encourage you, if English is not your primary language or your baseline or your deep language, to use the language that helps you very quickly go deep, all right? So use your baseline language. And now you want to give yourself a really, really simple, non-specific, but clear question to answer with a yes or no answer. No commas, no additions, but just a yes or no. So an example for safety might be, let's say some friends have decided that they're going to go do an activity that you used to do all the time, but you haven't done during the pandemic. And I'm not going to give you any more specifics than that. And so the question you want to ask yourself is, do I feel safe doing this? Very simple question. Take your deep breath. In, out. And ask yourself, do I feel safe doing this? Yes or no? And chances are you're going to get a really quick yes or no. And you may not like the answer. But see if you can get your yes or no. If you don't get an answer at all, see if you can calm yourself down a little bit more and ask yourself again, do I feel safe doing this? Yes or no? And again, if you don't get an answer, maybe you can shift the question slightly and ask yourself, do I want to do this? Yes or no? And chances are you're going to get a yes or no answer. That's your baseline, your human survival thing in that moment. Your animal self is saying, yes, I feel safe doing that. Yes, I want to do it. No, I don't feel safe doing it. No, I don't want to do it. It doesn't explain why, and it may not be your final answer, but you get that baseline information. If you get no answer at all, there's a lot of reasons for that. One, maybe it's just you can't answer that question right now. You might be really tired. You might be really overwhelmed, and your body just can't do that. And that's okay. Be really gentle with yourself. So you see the benefit of getting that yes, no. And again, we're going to talk about how to work with that. So that's one exercise. And that gets us way, way, way into a very primal survival point of view. Yes or no. And again, don't question it. Don't try to do nuance. You just want your baseline yes or no. Now, if you want to get a little bit more nuance, or if the yes, no is not working, then we're going to shift over into mammalian brain, and we're going to use a slightly different scale. Instead of going yes or no, we're going to do yes is now warm and cool. Yes mean warm over here means I'm feeling really good about this. Cold over here means I don't feel good about this. But there's a range now. You might be lukewarm. You might be warmish. You might be coldish. But see this range, we're now opening the answer up. And you can ask the very same question. Again, take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and just ask yourself, how do I feel about going to this thing? Am I here? Am I here? I'm somewhere else? Do I feel warm? Do I feel cold? Do I feel lukewarm? And chances are you're going to get an answer. You're going to get an answer. How do I feel about this? So we're using a slightly different part of the brain, but sometimes that's easier to access than the deep visceral gut yes and no. Again, these are baseline answers. You may find that a couple of questions are helpful. One might be, do I feel safe going? Two might be, do I want to go? And one might be a yes and one might be a no. And then you can use your thinky human sapient brain to say, well, what are some solutions? How can I find a solution to keeping me safe and then also maybe doing something I really want to do? So friends, I just wanted to give you these two tools to use parts of our brain that God has given us that we actually use unconsciously all the time. But to consciously ask ourselves privately, do I feel safe doing this? Is this a good thing for me right now? Yes or no? To deeply ask ourselves what feels right deep in our bodies is a way of honoring the beautiful creation that God made us to be and the deep knowing we have. We may negotiate a more sophisticated answer than yes or no or hot or cold or lukewarm, but at least we have our own personal baseline information from which we can make really good choices. So that was just two little tiny techniques I wanted to share with you today as you make more and more choices to see if you feel safe because of health concerns, safe because of cultural, racial concerns, safe because of where your body energy is at. You know, many of us are finding that as new things start to come back into our lives, things we used to do without thinking, they actually take a lot more energy than they used to. We've also been through a very, very stressful number of years, not just this past year. And so be gentle with yourself, dear ones. A no today may be a yes tomorrow, but honor your yeses and your nos. Honor your deep body knowing. Not only will you bless yourself, you will bless those around you. By practicing such deep wisdom, we make the world safer for everyone. So I'm going to close this little practice video with a blessing upon you. Dear ones, you are beautifully and wonderfully made. May God grant you a space and a place to deeply ask yourself what feels safe. And then may God give you wisdom on what to actually do. Go forth in peace. Know that God loves you, and I do too. Bye-bye.